we're still standing. The architecture of loyalty and the web that keeps weaving. Recently, a few people have told me that I inspire them to believe in hope. That's a weird predicament for a lifelong catastrophizer. I've always believed that pessimism is safer because if something good happens, I can be pleasantly surprised. But I like hope. It's a weird little animal that burrows under the leaves and rarely comes out at night. There are far worse things to live one's life accidentally spreading. Many people I know, not just me, have experienced a seismic clearing out this past year. We lost loved ones or familiar lives. The landscape changed. Jobs altered. Friends hit the road. I can't count how many times someone has booked a session with me in the herd because they say that their life looks so different now. What we all also have in common is this sense of awe that we're still standing. We walked through fire, suffered some burns, but we're still moving on. That's pretty remarkable. Take some time to praise yourself for getting this far. I'm remembering to do the same for myself. I didn't just lose a farm. This year saw a lot of exits. People I never imagined leaving fled at the first sign of hardship, and many have since done their best to make the story fit whatever version of themselves they need to protect. Some left quietly, others with fireworks, but all of them taught me something about how truth bends under the weight of other people's discomfort. I lost more than a farm. I lost my definition of loyalty. I lost the comfort of believing that showing up for people meant that they'd show up when I was the one running on fumes. I lost the safety of thinking everyone cheering me on actually wanted me to make it. And maybe that's the hardest part, realizing how many people love what you build until it asks them to help you construct it. I've spent far too much of my life carrying what doesn't belong to me. Guilt, projection, unspoken debts dressed up as friendship. I carried like that was my role, the steady one, the fixer, the strong back under everyone else's burden. But the truth is, I was already hauling hay, patching fences, and dragging my own body through exhaustion and illness and fear. All I ever asked for was space. I didn't want notice or favor. I didn't want to be a part of another story spun in the shadows. I just wanted space to breathe, to build, to heal, and to get this farm and these animals through to the next stage. Instead, some people took that space as an opening. They filled it with gossip, with half-truths, with demands that I keep performing the version of myself they could live with. They wanted the version of me who didn't make them feel uncomfortable. The one who could take every hit and still keep smiling. But this year, I stopped smiling for the sake of peace. I stopped pretending that other people's betrayals were misunderstandings. And I stopped holding the door open for anyone who wanted to walk out of it. So here's to what remains. The ones who stayed, the ones who showed up with shovels instead of questions, the ones who never once asked me to carry their bullshit while I was already hauling hay, the ones who don't flinch when I'm honest. I'm taking the occasion of my birthday month to say this and say a deep goodbye to the people who fled when I got real vulnerable and asked for help. Like having no choice but to leave my old barn, their leaving gave me the one thing I hadn't been able to claim for years: wild space to write my next chapter. And maybe that's what authenticity really is, not a performance of resilience, but the raw, unpolished truth that you can lose almost everything and still be standing. Because for all that was lost, my life finally feels like my own. The architecture of loyalty. Apparently, there was a plan, a barn birthday surprise, which I promptly ruined by wandering off to slow walk through the farmhouse architecture with Michael Zemer, who, in true form, never rushes anything, but somehow always shows up at exactly the right moment. There wouldn't be a Bramblewood without Michael. He and I go back to our teenage years, dressed in black and making art. We met during that blurry time when everyone's trying to figure out who they are and where they're supposed to land. But Michael always seemed to know where he was going. I don't even remember how our paths first crossed, just that they kept intersecting over the decades like two threads that were never meant to stay far apart. One day he walked through the doors of a restaurant while I was mediating an argument between my grandfather and mother. I took one look at Michael and thought he was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. And I still think that today. I didn't meet his sister Julie until years later, after college, when I'd just bought a little chestnut horse named Max. I was still trying to find my purpose, the version of adulthood that made sense to me, and Max seemed to know what I didn't. He still does. Julie arrived at that old barn one evening and asked if I'd be willing to move to her beautiful farm closer to the city, a place where I could grow my teaching program and help care for her herd. It was hard leaving that first home at the base of the mountains. It felt wild and raw and mine. But when I arrived at Julie's, I realized that moving on was necessary for expansion. The pastures there stretched towards the Blue Ridge on one side and Paris Mountain on the other. The air felt rich with possibility. It was as if the land itself was showing me how to begin taking root in my own skin. That move changed everything. It taught me what it meant to live with horses, not just around them. It showed me that I was building something more than a job. I was constructing my own way of life. The farm urged me to trust that the people who show up without fanfare are the ones who hold the foundation intact for years to come. I never set out to spend my life in the company of horses or on a farm, or telling stories about land and loss and finding our way home again. But here I am, and I can trace every path that led here back to the web of people who reached out and stayed. Stable Roots isn't just a newsletter. It's a gathering place, a living archive of the ways we fall apart and find our way again. Bring your tea, your weariness, your wild heart, and your curiosity. The gates are open, the fields are wide, and the stories are still unfolding. Click the button that you can find in the show notes to subscribe. And then there's Emery and Izzy, the architects of the birthday surprise, and the ones who remind me that this story has been unfolding far longer than I sometimes realize. I taught Izzy's mom before she was even born, and still do, which means I've watched whole chapters of a family's life unfold from the saddle. Emery was one of my tiniest riders before COVID, bright-eyed, fearless, and always laughing. And now she's returned as a teen with a car. She's taller, wiser, but with the same spark that first caught my heart. Watching her circle back feels like watching time itself loop gently in on itself, proof that what we build here doesn't end, it just changes form. The web keeps weaving through generations, through seasons, through people who drift and return, through stories that keep finding their way back to the barn. That's the beauty of it. No matter how much life rearranges us, the right threads always find each other again. The web keeps weaving. So maybe that's what this whole year has been about. The losing, the staying, the weaving back together. The exits cleared the air. The staying ones built the foundation and the web. This living, breathing network of people and horses and history just keeps stretching wider. Every time I think the story is winding down, someone new steps in, someone returns, or a familiar thread ties itself into the new pattern. There's a beauty in that can't be planned. It can only be lived, experienced. As we move into the winter season, here are a few chances to gather, both in person and online, and be a part of what's unfolding at Lavender Hill. And you can find links to all of these things in the show notes or on the original post. On Thursday, November 20th at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., I'll host my first women's gathering called Rooted. It'll be here in person at Lavender Hill. And we're going to do somatic exercises. We're going to do journaling. We're going to really dig into the space that is created here by the land and the horses and the herd. And I cannot wait to start hosting these every month. So we have one planned in November. That's on the 20th. And then we have a Saturday and Thursday planned for December. And Rooted will be running twice a month on a weekday morning and on a weekend afternoon for the foreseeable future. If you are in the Greenville area, I cannot wait to see you, and I hope that you'll join me. On Tuesday, November 25th at 6:30 p.m., we are going to have our Stable Roots Zoom gathering for paid subscribers. And it's been a long time since we checked in this way, but man, this year has been rough. So for all of you who were previously joining me for our monthly Zooms, those are going to start again. I just needed to get landed, and I'm still not unpacked. But we've got a little bit of a routine going now, and it's going to be so much easier to get back to connecting with you guys once a month. And this is our virtual circle where we share stories, updates, and catch up after a long absence this time. So my plan is to get back on track, offering these sessions once a month. If you're a paid subscriber, you'll be receiving a separate post with the link to the Zoom meeting. And if you would like to become a paid subscriber, just go to the show notes or go to Stable Roots, click on subscribe, and you'll see all the different levels there. And then on Friday, November 28th, our Black Friday day camp for kids will be happening here at Bramblewood Stables at Lavender Hill. And you can, if you're local in the area, if you've got kids, if you know kids, help us spread the word. But this is our first camp that we're hosting in the new spot. And it's a little interlude to give parents a break in between shopping for Christmas. And I cannot believe we are at the end of the year. But the web keeps weaving. And if you're reading this or you're listening to this, you're already a part of it. I'm so glad that you're here with me. Cannot wait to see where we go together next. Love, Kim.